It's a Track Stitch podcast coming up, a special edition of the podcast as we are completely unprepared with content. So we are going to wing it and prove our worth as the best, most informative, and most interesting podcast on the interweb. All that and more, but first, as always, it's the Track Stitch Band.
Champion, Lloyd is bearing down on top of Ngugi. Ngugi digs deep and he's got no more. And Andrew Lloyd wins it up.
Récupéré ensuite chez lui au Maroc à Ifrane.
La Web, il est parti à la Web, il a tenté le coup du siècle là.
Oui,
Surprendre tout le monde. Au 800.
Final of the men's 10,000 meters in 19.
Stop the ball out. Oh, it looks to be. Who else is in the race? The wave is there. The confidence is there.
Okay, recording the podcast. It's Friday, October the 3rd. Shane Rohde, the venerable Shano, he is back in New Zealand. How were your final days in the US, mate?
Oh, mate, it was wicked over there. There's a lot of sensationalist stuff I feel about the US. I remember messaging you, Jace, saying with that image of all that ice stuff in Portland, going, "Man, are you okay?" And you're like, "Mate, it's just life as usual here." And we found the same in NYC and LA. And actually, I was going to factually correct you. It's actually the 4th, depending on how you look at things, which happens to be the old dog here's birthday. 44 years young.
Awesome.
We're celebrating with a maybe a salmon bagel or some sort of eggs Benedict this morning and a couple of flatties.
Happy birthday, mate. That's awesome.
Thanks, mate. I made it. 44.
Yeah, so I managed to survive here in Portland, even though we're under siege. But probably the most annoying thing so far is that every night there's a helicopter that just is flying over sort of the downtown area. I don't know what it's actually up there for. I didn't know that, this was when all the stuff went down, but that's about all we see. So for all the viewers out there, we're doing okay here in Portland. It's not as bad as advertised. As mentioned in the intro, it's a bit of a historic podcast for us because we haven't really prepared anything. It's the end of the track and field season. No real races going on as yet. There is the meet in New York City coming up, was run by Alexis Ohanian, the husband of Serena Williams. That's coming up in, I think, next week, but a little bit low on action. So what we thought we'd do here is sort of just test our mettle as the people's podcast, the Track Stitch podcast, the best, the most informative, the most exciting podcast on the interweb. We're sort of just going to ad-lib this one with a few topics and see how we go. How's that sound?
I feel like proclaiming ourselves as the best. We're a little bit like LeBron proclaiming himself as the GOAT. But hey, look.
Sometimes you've got to talk it into existence.
And arguably he is the GOAT, so maybe that will logically apply to us as well.
Well, actually, that segues nicely because a couple of weeks ago, we actually had this topic to talk about, but we ran out of time because we were nattering on about something. And it popped up in our Tokyo 91 episode where we went back and I legally put all those videos in the podcast that didn't get yanked for some reason. So all good, meaty. And it was also the same podcast where we had that awesome run by Nuruddin Morsali back in 94 in that 5K in Zurich where they went for the world record and he missed, but he ran like 13:02 with an awesome final lap. Sort of actually quite similar a race to what Cole Hocker just ran in Tokyo to win, right? Big kick from Morsali, like way under 52 for the final lap. And it just got me really thinking about how awesome he was, but yet at the same time, maybe we don't, why don't we, because you agree, right? Why we don't really feel like his legacy is potentially as good as it should be. And there's no rational reason for that, right?
I agree.
So I started to think, well, there must be a reason for that. There has to be a reason. So I came up with this theory that I want to run by you. I've got a name for it. I mentioned it on the podcast last week, but there was no context. And I'm calling it the torch theory, right? And basically it is, if we can refer to it moving forward as someone was torched or not, it's kind of sort of a play on words as well. But basically what it is, and this is the situation surrounding Morselli, right? So he wins these 3 world titles beginning in 1991, obviously in Tokyo. He's a dominant athlete of this era. But then we get to 1996, and of course he's running in Atlanta. He had a terrible race in 92 where he was beaten by Cacho. He wasn't even close to a medal in that one. And he goes into Atlanta, and this 1500 meters is really a career-defining moment for him. And of course, if you're a student of the sport, like we are and like many of our fans are, you know what happened in this one. Very famous. El Garouge is in the race. He's really coming onto the scene rapidly and rising to ascendance and into prominence in the 1500 meter event. Makes this move with 450 to go. Unfortunately, has to be said, he trips himself on the back of Morselli's heels. I mean, there's nothing Morselli can do about it, right? He's running in front, so nothing he's done. Morselli gets the jump on the field, wins the Olympic title, but there were all these questions at the time, like, man, if El Garouge didn't fall, what would have happened? And then, in the case of Morselli, what happens is 3 weeks later, at the Grand Prix final in Milan, he's probably just, a little bit on the way out in terms of mental. He's checked out of the season because he's won this title that meant so much to him in Atlanta. And El Garouge basically takes him to the cleaners in that Grand Prix final, right? And from that point on, it really began this period of dominance for El Garouge. And Morselli, he made the world final in 97, which El Garouge won quite easily, and he was still actually ran. I didn't know this, but he still ran at the Olympics in 2000.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, where I think he made it through the heats, but then he crashed out in the semi-finals. But basically, the whole theory revolves around this. If El Garouge had not beaten Morselli in that Grand Prix final in 1996 and then gone on to immediately begin his period of dominance, would we look at Morselli's legacy as being a lot, I guess this doesn't take away from El Garouge's legacy, but it sort of just detracts a little bit from Morselli that happened. And so what I'm basically saying, if there was like a little period of time, even like a 4-year period of time, imagine, for example, after 1996, El Garouge's career begins in the year 2000. Let's say in the 2000 final, he trips behind Nguyen Yen, doesn't finish. That's his big tragedy. In 2004...
Or even if he just gets out sprinted by...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because the same situation exists with Seid Oita, even before with Morselli. So we saw this in that 91 final in Tokyo, where Oita is right there with 300 to go and then just gets absolutely destroyed in the final 300 by the field. He finishes 10th, I think. But also, you kind of forget that Oita was incredibly dominant over 1,500 meters. He was the world record holder still in that final. And I think he'd lost like one race in a 7-year period over 1,500 meters. And that sort of discludes the weird situation in 1998 that happened with him where he got bronze in the 800 and then he was entered in the 1,500, but there was all this internal weird stuff with the Moroccan Federation and he pulled out with like a hamstring injury. But that also happened to him. So I just wonder, like, is there validity to this theory that I have of being torched, that, your legacy is ultimately not just dependent on how good you were, but also on who comes immediately after you and some of those circumstances there?
We're just an incredibly emotional race of people because, it's just because there's been no dominant force in the 1,500 since El Garouge. There's no one. There was Kiprop, and then he got busted. Yeah. So there's been no, and he didn't get the world record Kiprop, and he didn't have that. When he raced, you didn't get that feeling he was really superior because he could do dumb stuff, and he just wasn't one of those guys with multiple world records for the distance and the surrounding distances. So I think you're dead right. I see it in my sports card collecting with like LeBron and Jordan and all these guys. I have these arguments about who's the GOAT, And in terms of investing in sports cards, people say, well, LeBron's not going to be revered like Jordan was, and Jordan, because video footage came in the 80s and the shoe brand and all that. What a lot of people don't realize is that Jordan was hated a lot of the time as a player in the 80s and 90s, even though he was great. And if there'd been social media, then he probably would have had he would have divided people the same way LeBron has. And those kids growing up, when they come into high-paying jobs, they're going to look at, I think, LeBron is that guy. No one talks about Bill Russell now as or Kareem as the GOAT. So I think it's just unfortunate for Noureddin Morsali that his era ended and another great era started, as you said, same way for Oita. Oita wasn't in the conversation really once Morsali had been dominant for a few years. So I think you're dead right. I think a lot of it is anachronistic and without any proper rational basis. It's more of an emotional thing. We all remember LG, and he's still got the world record.
Yes, and that's the thing. He will never be quote unquote torched, because it's crazy. I didn't realize this, or every now and then this pops up and it comes to prominence again. That race in the 5,000 meters where he beats Bekele and Kipchoge, to do the double, that was his final race that he ever ran on the track. So he was like, I'm done. Like, I'm good with this. And that's totally understandable. It's an awesome way to finish a career. But I guess that didn't even open up any possibility that somebody could come along. I guess it would have been maybe Bernard Lagat could have done it. But then again, Al Garouge had dominated Lagat for quite a few years anyway, right? But now we're so far on with Al Garouge having held this world record, this period of dominance. Even if, let's say, for example, Jakob or Cole Hocker was able to break that world record now, I just feel like it wouldn't detract away from the legacy of Al Garouge, because it happened for, it was so long ago. And it's a rare situation, because even in the 800 meters with Kip Keita and Rudisha, who, let's take probably the podium of the GOAT 800 meter runners. It's Rudisha. You can't put Wanyonyi yet, but it's Rudisha, it's Kip Keita, and it's Ko. And there were even little gaps in between the eras of those guys, which meant that there was no detracting from sort of the dominance or the aura that those guys had built up in their legacies. So this 1500 is kind of a rare situation that you would have the guys come along, not just immediately in the periods after, but here are some other similarities for you. Just jump in if I'm nattering on too much.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
So basically, after that 1991 final, where Morsali beats Oita head-to-head, big race, within 1 year, he had taken Oita's world record from him. So Oita held the world record 3:29.46, right? And then and he was still the world record in 1991, and Morsali ran his first world record in Rieti in 92, 3:28.86. So not only did Morsali sort of put Oita to bed in that world final, then within 12 months, he already had expunged his record from the books, which is kind of huge. The same situation, exact same situation happened with Al Garouge and Morsali, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the 96 situation, and then within 12 months, well, it was a little bit longer, but in a very short period of time, Al Garouge had come out and run that 3:26 performance in Rome, which of course took Morsali's name out of the book. So those guys didn't even really get to hold the world records for that long, which I think is another factor, right?
Well, of course, there are examples from history of this phenomenon. Prior, we have Herb Elliott in 1960 winning the Olympics as a 21-year-old, unbeaten, beat Michael Yasi by, I believe, 2 point something seconds in Rome, and just the footage is incredible. He just runs away from them. Yet, even accounting for our New Zealand bias in our media, once you get into the sport and read voraciously, Peter Snell is pretty unequivocally regarded as the GOAT middle distance runner. And of course he had the 800 record, the mile record. So, but it does unfairly diminish or disproportionately diminish Herb Elliott's achievements when you actually think about how great Herb Elliott was. Yeah. I mean, to test it, if Elliott had been 68, 72, those years, would he be, and run away from everyone and retire undefeated? Would he be given more weighting in that sort of pantheon of greats? And on the women's side too, I mean, I know there were suspicions or scuttlebutt around Genzebi Dibaba, but she still ran the world record from a knowingly tarnished Chinese world record that hitherto for 30 years no one had got close to,
Right.
and won the world championships. Yet Saifan Hassan 351 in the world championship final, effectively running off the front and crushing everyone in the last 300. Like they were standing still, including Faith Kipyegon, admittedly coming back from pregnancy. Faith goes on to become, indisputably, I'm not saying she isn't the greatest 1500 meter runner of all time, arguably men or women.
Right.
But those two women I just mentioned, I mean, had she not come along, either one of those could make a case, particularly I think Genzebi Dibaba for breaking a tarnished world record. So a lot of it is more art than science. And I don't think, I don't think a proper appreciation. I don't think we're very rational or calm or sensible or we're not very mathematical about it. We're very like, we remember this person and that sticks, and then that gets like a rolling stone, it gets inertia, and then everyone's like, that's the GOAT or that's the person, and we just heavily get into that person.
Yeah, exactly. And here's some more interesting, more Sally stuff, and then we can see where the podcast takes us with some other stuff. But more Sally, 3 world titles, consecutive world titles, Olympic title as well. He took more chunks off the world, or larger chunks off the world record than even Al Garouche did, right? So the world record when Morselli was coming to prominence, I mentioned it earlier, 3:29.46. He took almost 2 seconds. Well, he took over 2 seconds off that.
Yes.
Took the record through 3:28 down into 3:20 into the 27s, which was just incredible. But he was also the 1500 meter world record holder, the mile world record holder, the 2K, and he also held the 3K. And he also had a legit chance at the 5,000 meter record that night in Zurich, where they had terrible rain delay. And then we mentioned it when we analysed that race and the footage. Such an awesome race, because even though it was a world record attempt, it still was an actual competitive race. There was no wave light warrior stuff. And the world record at the time, what was it, 12:56 from Geb? I think we mentioned it too. He could absolutely have run the world record over 5K.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And even when you look at that 1996 final that Nyangabo won in Atlanta, that wasn't a really awesome. I don't want to take away from a guy who won an Olympic title, but I went and had a look at some of the splits in there. I think Nyangabo, what did he run? Was it like,
it was pretty weak.
It was like 13. It was in the mid 13s, right? Like 13:10 or something like that.
It was 13. It was 13:07 or 13:0, between 13:06 and 13:08, I believe.
Yeah, but it was with like a 55 last lap.
55. But he walked away from those guys.
Yeah, but you could absolutely have made a case that like prime Morselli.
Yeah, absolutely
could have won that as well. And then
I believe he could have won that on his air. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the shape that he was in 96, and it was clear that he was kind of on the tail end of his peak window had basically finished. That was sort of from 1991 or 1992 through to 95. But yeah, I mean, just an interesting one, and it's not.
Here's a hot take
away from El Garouche.
No, it's not. Here's a hot take for you, and it's a little bit spicy, and it's a little bit repetitive after last week, but. I don't think, even though I think Morselli was more exciting to watch, and I was sort of like, as you were 10, 11, 12, when I sort of got to know who the greats of the sport were, more exciting to watch, more explosive. I still don't, this is a 2-pronged hot take. I still don't necessarily think that Morselli, even though he was more explosive, could have beaten Al Garouche, or would have been a heavy favourite to beat Al Garouche in a championship race, notwithstanding Hisham's problems in championship races until 2004. And the reason I say that is, whilst Morselli was more explosive than Al Garouche was faster. What was he, a second and a half, 1.3 seconds quicker in terms of his top performance. Also, I don't think that either of them had a great last 100. They were both very good at driving from 400, 450, 500 out, but neither of them were particularly explosive.
No.
I'll frame it as a question rather than an actual position.
Yeah.
Could Cole Hocker conceivably, based off, could 2024 Paris Cole Hocker have challenged both of them in that last 100 if he was thereabouts through his furious ability to
I love
muscle
that
up?
one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see why not.
I don't see why not.
Because here's the I think this would have to be the condition. The race would have to be a little bit slower. So I think that in that kind of race, I find it difficult to believe that either Morselli would have been tapping out right at his limit anyway, right? So he was a 327.3 guy at his absolute best. He only ran under 328 twice, right? That sort of awesome 95 season. He came really close in Monaco, and then he broke that world record in Nice. So Hocker was doing it in a championship style race with a big finish. So it's kind of tough.
Did Morsley run under 328 twice, did he?
Yes.
What was the other one?
So they had two big, he set the world record in Nice, and then they tried to set it up again in Monaco, and he ran like 327.5.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
is this a bet challenge here?
You should have got the bet in first. You missed an opportunity. You should have slid it past.
I mean,
me.
I
No,
could be
but
wrong.
to be
I could be
fair, I
wrong.
I wouldn't have. You sounded very confident. I wouldn't have taken the bet because I didn't know that he actually did that. I wasn't. But yeah, no, I think you keep going with that train of. I like that. Keep going with it. So keep going with the train of thoughts.
I think so. And then you got to think as well, like, what was Hocker's finishing time? It was exactly the same as the famous
327.64.
64 or 65.
Could be a bet.
This could be one. I think it's 65.
What was the 327.64? Then was that that was El Rouge and Seville.
I think it was exactly to the 100th of a second that it was the exact same times. That's what I think.
No, it's Algarouge was 64.
Was he?
Yeah. I'm not sure what Hocker was, though. He may have been 65.
Oh, man. I
don't
agree with you. I want to look it up. Should we look it up right now? What are we betting here?
Fuck.
This is a classic old school
No.
JS versus Deo bet.
No, that's 3 times.
Come on, you got to be.
Okay, so Algarouge was 65, Hocker was 64. That's what I'm going to say.
No, incorrect.
What was it?
I don't know, but I'm going to look
So
it up now.
Algarouge was 327.65 and Hocker was 64.
LG Seville. Let's have a look here. All right, world champs. This is exciting stuff.
I haven't looked, by the way.
That's all right. 99, 1,500 meters. Algarouge, 327.65.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cole Hocker, 1,500 meters, 2024 men. It was Cole Hocker. Oh my gosh. The platform is terrible on a phone. 327.65. Yes.
It was one off.
Yes, that is one of the first times.
I got 1 out of 2. No, you were right though.
Well, I got 2 out of 2.
You did. You got 2 out of 2.
Awesome. All right. Well, there you go. It's actually on the interweb. I don't know. Well, I don't know what we bet there, but anyway. So the point being is, like, I think they were also just very different races. Like Algarouge, they were out very, very quickly in that 1,500 in Seville, right? Because that was the infamous pace race where, was it Youssef Barber or it was Adel Kouch paced him.
Adiel Kouache, the world junior champion. He just about ran his
paced him.
800. Just about ran his 800 PB in the first 800.
So I think Cole Hocker on that particular day, especially with what we saw, that he probably had, I think you and I both agree, maybe 0.3 or 0.4 of a second more to give in that final 80 meters. It probably would have been very, very tough for either of those two all-time greats to hold him off. I think they would have needed a different style of race. Maybe not like, El Garouge, as we've talked about, he definitely had so much more ability over 800 meters. This is like one of the classic all-time questions, right? How fast was El Garouge over 800? People love looking up World Athletics and they see that he ran 1:47.05 in Turin back in 1994. That's absolute nonsense. I mean, I've heard many stories from very reputable professionals who trained with him that he used to do a lot of like time trial work with his big crew of pacers where he was running much more in line with guys, like Cram and et cetera, et cetera. So,
if to settle that debate once and for all,
yeah,
and it's actually on the internet, go and watch the heats from Seville in 1999. He runs 3:35.6. This is before every man and his dog was able to run like 3:33 in a heat. This is when running 3:35 meant something.
Yeah.
He ran 3:35.65 in his heat in Seville. And he ran, it's Peter Matthews commentating, he's got that beautiful sonorous voice. And he goes, El Garouge, he goes comfortably through. And it's really quiet. And then he ran his last lap in 52.7 and his last 700 meters in 1:46 pace. And last 50 of that heat, he runs 52.7. He is walking, like doing the sprinter walk. He's literally walking it down, just jogging like the last 60 meters. So absolutely, he's a 1:43 guy all day. There's no doubt about it.
And even potentially quicker, I think.
Yeah.
So, but just different style of races where, I don't think that a guy like Hocker could necessarily handle going out really quick in the first lap. Like some of these races back in that era, you've got to see to believe just how quick those guys got out in the first 200, 400 meters. And then, you talk about the structure of the races and how they do it now versus back then. Very much so. Back then it was like you get out there, but you always wanted to get to the front of the race because he was terrified of running in packs after what happened in Atlanta. And then you would always consolidate in that second lap, try and bring it back on the third lap, and then try and kick home hard. So a very difficult way to run these times versus now where the guys are basically negative splitting by tenths of a second all the way through, and they're able to because wave light's helping them. So, to answer or to take on that hot take, I'm not entirely sure. I just think that was an incredible day by Cole Hocker, who is obviously an awesome athlete in his own right.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. We've coined a new theory. It's called being torched. It's unfortunate. A lot of emotion in it, but I guess it is.
I think as well, though, just a slightly different point, but with Cole got disqualified in that 1500 last year. He won the 5 pretty easily. This year, and won the 5 pretty comfortably. Jakob never, didn't repeat as Olympic 1500 meter champion. He's never won the world champs. To win a lot of titles, a la El Garouge, Morsley, whatever, that elevates your standing far beyond even amazing athletes who are single-time champions. So I think that's why we remember El Garouge. It's very, very difficult. You saw Kelly Hodgkinson this year. He was the best runner in that race still, even though the Kenyan lady beat her. She'd cleaned up. I went back and looked at footage as part of my sports gambling syndicate league work. I went back and looked at footage of one of the earlier Diamond Leagues where she ran 1:54. And Lillian O'Dara, the winner, was like, could not hang with her in that fast-paced Diamond League style race. And so Kelly couldn't repeat. And before then, she'd never won anything, and she's won one Olympic title, and she's a great athlete. But to win multiple championships like those guys did back then, and Kiprop did it too. I know he got caught for doping, but he did it though in the first instance. So I think we as a race, we remember that dominance. I remember when Alga Rouge, when Scopesy and I went and watched him in Melbourne, there's like a halo around people like Alga Rouge, that
Right.
they've got this halo around them. That's the guy, and
Yeah.
we haven't had the guy in the 1500 since Alga Rouge. We haven't.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, there's a guy right now that's got an opportunity, though. I think he's the right age. He's got the right skill set. I mean, if Cole Hocker can, I mean, dude, if he can get it done in Beijing at the 2027 World Champs and then somehow pull it off in LA, I mean, then you realize not only on the Mount Rushmore, but stakes. He honestly would stake a claim right up there with Alga Rouge to be the greatest. Yeah, but that sounds crazy to say that, but I don't know when you're looking at just general criteria to match Co, to do something that, I mean, the reality is still this. Morselli couldn't do it. Oita didn't do it. Alga Rouge couldn't even do it, right? He couldn't win back-to-back Olympic 1,500 meter titles.
Yeah.
And I know he won four worlds, but the Olympics are just so much more special because they're the ultimate test of just also your mental and emotional capability. Because as we know, like Alga Rouge really fried himself going into Sydney because he was still the best runner in the field, right? He dominated. When I say the best, he was still also in the best form because remember he beat Noah Nguyen in that race in Zurich afterwards where he ran like 3:27.7 and Nguyen was way out the back in that one. So in terms of physical capability, there's no reason why Alga Rouge shouldn't have been able to win in Sydney, but he just did himself in mentally. So that's also a massive component of it there. So
Hocker's not the most aesthetically pleasing runner. He's not an elegant executioner like of the Alga Rouge, or even with that powerful kind of somewhat unusual yet compelling style of a Morselli, or even that
stride.
Yeah, or even that sort of gangly, sort of alien-like stride of Kiprop, which was pretty captivating to watch. But I look, Hocker, if you just look at the facts, like what I remember seeing, like when he was like 18 or something, much like yourself, Jace, in the 800. What did he run like? It was a sort of a secondary event for him. He ran 146 point. Yeah, he was a footlocker, either champion or runner up. He was right there in that. He at 20, and you got to take Jakob out of this because Jakob was a freak in terms of the performances he was running, and then this is before the kind of super freak era of people like Nils Laros running, and Sam Ruth running these times as a 15-year-old. So this is sort of before that. Cam Myers became a bit more normalized. He was sixth. He beat the Olympic champion, the defending Olympic champion in the US trials in the 1500. He was sixth in the Olympics in a race which was just it was just a step too far for him after a long college season. He just wasn't fast enough at that point. He's now won the Olympics. He's the world 5,000 meter champion, and he's got a tenacious kick. The one thing I'll add to that little spicy recipe is I don't believe he's particularly overtrained, and he's had one coach for a very long time. He's stuck with that coach. So I think you've got an incredible, if anyone is going to, as you just said, go on and perhaps defend the title or win multiple championships, he is the guy for that.
And the thing is, he sort of takes a little bit of shit within the circles because he doesn't run a lot in Europe, and he doesn't seem, like he's never, for example, in Prefontaine Mile, which is a mile that he always has to run because of sponsors' obligations, he never seems to really figure in that one either. We've seen Nagos run 3:43 there. We've seen, even Hobbs Kessler, I think, has got a better record in maybe the Bowerman Mile than Hocker does. He's always there in kind of like fourth, fifth, or sixth. It's not a position that you would expect from a guy as good as him. So he does cop a little bit for not being, so good on the circuit and not really running these times. That we've seen from the other guys. I think still to this day, correct me if I'm wrong, you might know this, I'm not sure if he's broken 3:30 outside of that race in Paris last year. Like, that's his only sub 3:30 performance, right?
He may have run 3:29 after the Olympics.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
I'm 100% wrong. It was in maybe Lausanne and post Olympics. Yes.
But conceptually you're right, because it's not far under. I think he's like,
He's not like Nagoose or those guys who pump out really fast times all year round, which
it's
to your
really
point
just,
about training is important.
it's really just armchair critics as well. And I mean,
Yeah.
Lance Armstrong in cycling was notorious for being, well, he's notorious for a few things, but he's notorious for being kind of not really right at the level he needed to be. And then I remember reading Tyler Hamilton's book, and like, I don't have a lot of time for all that stuff of that whistle blowing, because these guys
Yeah.
ate all that money, and then when it became economically convenient for them, they wrote a book and were like, "Oh no, the culture was bad. They made me do it." It's like, mate, you never would have had all the money and all the fame without the drugs in the first place. So just put a sock in it. But anyway, with Lance, I remember Tyler saying something like, "Oh, he mysteriously just really improved like a month before the Olympics." Well, these drugs they were all taking, there was no magic to them, as even Tyler said himself, and they there was nothing that he was on that the others weren't, and yada yada. So some people, and I believe Hocker is one of those, Lassie Veron is a great example, are just better. It's a sort of mix of a physiological and psychological forces coming together. And Hocker, from the minute those championships started, notwithstanding his faux pas in the 1500 semis, looks supreme. The way he looked supreme last year in the Olympics. The way he moved in the heats, he looked like a guy who owned the event. Whereas that guy, as you say, was nowhere to be seen, during the year. So yeah, everyone's different. He's a great championship racer.
Yeah, and it is tough to sort of wrap it up. It is tough just to be on all the time throughout the course of the year. And these guys run a lot now.
Yeah.
There's this new refound focus on running indoors. We talked about this last week with Grant Fisher, and just how it's just seeming for a guy who seems to have everything so buttoned down, he seemed to make some massive faux pas this year, being in such good form indoors, running Grand Slam track, which still took its toll, and then just was a shell of himself, just running on fumes in these championships, and really should have done a little bit better than he did, given his level of talent and quality of performances that we've seen from him. So maybe we just need to be fine that Cole Hocker is just going to be sort of this premier like competition performer for his career, and that's absolutely fine. Like all this chatter of can he break the world record? Yeah, we both agreed last week that maybe he could get down into that low 327 category, high 326s. But also my question would be, in order to do that, we've seen, like when you go back and historically look at all like the sub 327 races in history, the guys who run those times, you have to commit to being at the front of the race and really pushing the pace. These
he's not that kind of he's not that kind of runner.
Exactly.
He doesn't have that flowing gait. He's not aggressive throughout the first 2/3 of a race. He's the guy. He's like a slingshot. He chugs along, and then he just explodes. And that's how he won the bloody Olympics, an Olympic record, and beat all the other guys who are in that mix. So I don't. Yeah, it's like a different event. If it was say cycling, and you have when they Turin and all those things, he's built to win championships.
Well, we talked about it with Geordie Beamish, right? These guys just like they're the ultimate hunters. Is Geordie Beamish probably ever going to run under 8 minutes for the steeplechase? No, but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, he's the kind of guy that when he's got bodies in front of him, it's just like that. We also talked about this last week. When you're a kid and you run like these races and you see people in front of you and you're chasing guys down, and your momentum and your confidence just builds as you go by people. Those runners are very special. They're very rare, and they're also incredibly dangerous in championship races. And so that's why like Beamish and Hocker to me are very, very similar athletes, in that they've just got that X factor where when like the thrill of the chase is there, or the thrill of the hunt, whatever you want to call it, they're just like, that is when they're at their absolute best. And that's never going to happen for Cole Hocker in a Monaco Diamond League setup where they want to go through in 150, 246 flat. It's just not.
Right. Yeah, but what a lethal competitor, right? In a 1500, I mean, he's the 5,000 meter world champion.
I know. Exactly. So
that shows the extent to which, because he is quick, but he's quick at the end of race. He's strong, man. He's
now on the par with Jakob.
Yeah, I thought, I'm not a huge Cole. Everyone has their favorite athlete. I'm not I'm more of a. I don't really necessarily favor any. I love watching all of them, but I'm not like a massive rooting for Kyle Hocker guy, but that 1500, sorry, it's a dog having a drink of water. That 5,000 final, I took my head off to him, and I just thought he was simply awesome in that race. Especially after getting DQ'd, he could have gone off and felt sorry for himself and all. I didn't really hear a lot from it, and then I was like, he came out and just, and didn't just win. I thought he unleashed. He did dominate, and it was class. When he set sail, it was like no one is going to touch him. So I thought it was very cool. It was a cool moment at the championships.
All right. Hey, should we play? Should we play a game, Deo?
I've only got about 5 or 6 minutes, but
okay, that's all right. All right. Should we play a game known as Would You Rather?
Let's do it.
Should we do a track Would You Rather? I've got some track Would You Rathers for you here. Okay, we'll try and go through them quickly. Okay, this is for fans of New Zealand distance running out there listening in. Jeff Shaw, Sammy Maloney, all the greats.
Probably our only podcast subscribers, but that's okay.
Exactly. All right. Okay, two legends of New Zealand middle distance running, Robbie Kramer Johnson and Phil PC Clode. Okay.
Yeah.
Head to head over distances, 800 meters to 10,000 meters. Okay. So the would you rather is basically like your life is on the line. Would you rather have Robbie Johnson over the cumulative, so it's head to heads. I think so we got 800, 1500, 510, and we'll throw a 3K in there. So it's like a 5 distance. So you've got to have a winner.
8, 15, 3, 5,
10. Would you rather, you've got your life on the line. Would you rather take Robbie Johnson or Phil Clode?
Oh, you're going to make me enemies here. Well, one at least. So, okay, but question though, is it your ultimate like performance in terms of time,
no, it's head to head. They're racing each other. They're
dogfight. They're racing each other. Oh, okay. Let's work through it. So I think Clody's going to handle him over 800.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
But the problem for PC is that Kramer is just the most pugnacious racer, and he beat him in that sort of marquee 1500, which was Phil's kind of centerpiece. Yeah, the smoke freeze. He outleaned him in that. So, life on the line. Probably beat him that day.
RJ would take him in a 10K, right?
Let's just keep working up though. So we've got Clody 1 from 1. I'm going to give it to Clody in the 800 because if I can't give it to Clody in the 800, I can't give it to anything else. So if we go, let's just say in the 800, and then I'm just going to say Phil could beat him in the 1500. I think Phil didn't get the most out of himself over in the 1500. So that's 2-0. And then we've got 3 more distances?
Yep, 3K, 5K, 10K.
Oh, it's just got to be Robbie over the other 3. I'm sorry, Clody, because I tell you why.
All right.
I mean, Robbie he beat Daniel Coleman the year Daniel Coleman ran 7:20. That's a fact. In a 7:48 race, he out-sprinted him. Yeah. He's got a great kick, Robbie. I think he's a bit stronger than Phil was. He ran 13. Oh, but it's hard because Clody was so good over cross-country and would have handled him cross-country. Oh,
well, that's why I said work back from the 10K, because I feel like Kramer will take him over 10K. Over that, I'm narrowing it down to that 3K head-to-head, a head-to-head over 3K at their peaks.
Yeah, because you got 8:15, you can give it to Clody, and then the 5 and 10 you can give it to Robbie. Who wins over the 3,000 with your life on the line? I've just seen too many races where Robbie's turned the screws on people like Alan Bunce, who was a great 337 man. And I've just seen Robbie also that incredible performance in the what was it, the Round the Bays, and John Nagugi, who just won the Commonwealths, and Andrew Lloyd were fighting for second, and Robbie ran a certified world road record for 8K, went through in like 22 something, which back then meant something. Yeah, I just can't. I can't. If my life is on the line, I just can't give it to PC, unfortunately. Right. What are you doing? You can't stay in the shadows.
I go take PC because because the pedigree, just because of pedigree,
PC.
No,
You're just trying to get back in his good. You're just trying to get back in his good books after talking shit and getting busted by his wife in those late
at the
90s.
National League
Yeah,
final
yeah,
when
and
he
then
ran the
finally
steeplechase.
finally
Paying him out.
finding the nuts to confess to him 25 years later when you thought he wouldn't care.
No, but I would, because he's a pug. I just feel like over the 3K distance, PC had he was just a tough. He was also, we talk about the pugnaciousness and the toughness of Kramer. I think PC also had that sort of mongrel in him, and he was just a dangerous competitor over 3K. I know a lot of guys felt the wrath of his ability in the final 300. So, all right, would you rather? You're gonna go with Kramer. I'll take PC, and we'll call it tight. Okay, next, would you rather? This is a good one, right? You have to live for a month with this person, hanging out stepbrother style. So you just got to hang out with them all the time, follow them around. You could do everything with them. Would you rather live for a month with Seb Coe?
Yeah.
Or Steve Ovett? On the surface, it would seem easy, but I think there's some caveats to this.
Well, personal favorite probably athlete of all time was Ovett. The sort of Rastafarian hair, the way of being, and he was very anti-establishment, and he was cool. So he would be my guy. But I don't think Steve Ovett really would do a lot these days. He's probably just sitting there having a beer on his balcony in Noosa, whereas Coe's in the thick of it in world athletics, and it'll be quite fun hanging out with Seb Coe and watching what he does. So I'm actually going to go with Coe. I think it'll be more interesting. I think Ovett will be fun for a day or two, but then I think Coe's, jet setting around the world, and he's going to, you ask me who I'd rather hang out with, full stop. I'd probably rather have a dinner or a beer with, I don't drink, but with Steve Ovett. But living with a month for them, I reckon I'd go out City.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because at some point as well, you're right. There's this cool factor of the reality that the guy's like president of World Athletics at a big wig. So there'd be some benefits there, and I'm sure he's got some stories. But would he actually tell them to you? I feel like Ovett would.
I just think you could see, if you're going around with them, though, you get to you'd be in the corner having a sandwich or something while he's meeting with important people, and you just kind of be watching.
What about if you guys, if it wasn't day-to-day life and you just had to hang out for an entire,
in a house with each of them for a month?
Yeah.
100 over 100 times Ovett. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Not even close.
Okay. Here. All right. Next one. We'll try and go through. I mean, this is.
I've got one for you. I'm gonna cut in.
You go. Sorry, go for it.
Okay. Would you rather have had who was is it Yusuf? Who won the world 1500 meter champs in 2009? He had a different name, and he changed.
The guy who blew up the Gregory syndicate.
He was.
Not Gregory. It was Gregory Kinsella.
Gregory Kinsella.
Yeah.
Would you rather have won one world championship in the 1500 and then retired to a quiet life, make a bit of money out of it, but enough to kind of sustain you, live a quiet life back in, say, rural Kenya? Would you rather do the Mondo and the pole vault and make a ton of money and just continually nip your own world record?
I mean, it's probably it's probably Mondo, right? Because I mean, he's a big star. He's got a hot girlfriend, and he's making way more money. But
I thought you're a purist, though. I mean, you're world champion. You're living out of the limelight.
No, but he's Olympic champion. He's Olympic champion, world champion.
Yeah, and the pole vault.
Yeah,
men's
100. See, that's a good one. That's why it's a good would you rather.
Okay, I've only got 2 minutes. I'm going to get in trouble with Rose because my birthday. I'm going out for breakfast.
All right. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Last one. No, do one more.
Got one more. Okay. This is a great ender for you. Would you rather go on a date with Alison Rowe or Mary Decker circa 1982?
Oh, Mary Decker. Because Alison Rowe was always in the news and she seemed lovely and all that. But Mary Decker, I'd love to ask her what really happened with Alberto Salazar and Athletics West, and was she on? I don't think
it had happened by then, but.
Oh, you're saying it's at the time?
Yeah, it's 1982 because I just was looking.
Oh, definitely Mary Decker then. Yeah.
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 Oh man, Alison Rowe is definitely an underrated, underrated character, I think. And she was very, very good as well. Like major
But you got to
marathon
remember,
ways.
you got to be. Yes, she was, but you got to be practical about these things. Like Alison Rowe is a Kiwi, and if you're a young up and coming chump like
That's
I
true.
was, you could probably somehow go and have a coffee or a run with her, and she'd encourage you along. But Mary Decker, at least it was in a hypothetical fantasy situation. Mary Decker's never going to give you the time of day, so it'd be. I think it would be. I'd use my fantasy sort of situation to
That's true.
take advantage.
There's the wild card factor with Mary Decker.
Yeah, like you're never
that's
going to
kind of
get
awesome.
the opportunity to. Yeah, so it's and she came over and she was attractive and she was she going out with Dick Quacks at the time? That was the rumor.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
great
right.
rumor, even if it's
I
not
think
true.
She was going out.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Quack.
So that would be a cool thing to kind of, oh, what's happening? What's Dick really like? And it'll be.
All right, cool. All right, mate. Well, you've got to go. You've got a breakfast.
I do.
A breakfast eggs Benedict waiting for you. Happy birthday, mate.
Thank you, mate.
And yeah, I think that was pretty good for our first sort of ad-libbed little podcast. That would be pretty.
Yeah, we're just sort of slowly finding our feet. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
If you viewers out there hang in there with us, in about 10 to 12 years, we're going to be a really good product.
Yeah, we've got to figure out some stuff how to keep things going. We've got some guys lined up, particularly over here, and some very interesting old school shoe guys lined up here in the US that we can have a natter to about the way things were back in the glory days of the.
You should go and look, if you haven't already, go and look at Gary Vaynerchuk and just put like before and after, and he's got great videos of him like slouched over with a wine bottle for like Wine Library TV, and it looks terrible. And he's like, everyone has to actually be like this to get anywhere with something. So you just got to keep doing it. And you know, the greatest thing for me about this is as one of our mates, Mike Thompson, said to me, I showed it to him and he goes, very niche. I was like, it is, but it's fun. And because you enjoy it, you want to keep doing it, and it's out of passion. It's not out of anything else. So it's great.
All right, mate. Well, have a good day, and we'll
You too.
catch you next week for more of the best track and field coverage on the internet with the People's Podcast, the Track Stitch. All right, mate. Have a good one.
Catch you. See ya. Bye.
Bye.